Beverly Hills Emergency.
Somebody killed my parents.
Pardon me?
I came home and I found them.
From the creators of Dahmer.
Okay, you have to shoot first so that you don't back out. Okay.
Based on the horrific true events.
How are we gonna do this?
Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, now playing only on Netflix.
We
are
Cultivate.
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 Cultivate. We are Cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Stengel.
Hello.
Hi. Before we get started, there are a couple things in the cubby that I would like to address. Both good things.
Ooh.
So the first...
It's a good cubby?
It's a good cubby.
It's a kudos cubby?
A kudos cubby. Ah, I like that.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Okay. So the first kudos is to our Buy Me a Coffee sustainers. So very special thank you to Charlie, Elizabeth, Sarah, and Cheryl for being monthly supporters of the podcast. If you would like to also support the show on Buy Me a Coffee, you can do so by either clicking the link in the show notes or just go on buymeacoffee.com/Ye Olde Crime Podcast, all one word. Don't forget the E in the old. And you can do either a one-time donation or become a sustainer at $1 or $5 tiers. And we send you a fun little, hey, thanks type of thing in the mail with my horrible Dr. Chicken Scratch handwriting.
Hey, it just means that it's authentic, you know?
Yeah.
If you can't read it, it's real.
Yeah. No one would print this the way that I write things. And the second thing in the kudos cubby is that the first TeePublic sale of the month will be October 8th through the 13th, which will be next week. And you can get 35% off everything in the store and $16 teas. And we have our seasonal merch is out. But anyway, those are the two little kudos cubby things that I wanted to address before we dive into the episode.
Awesome.
Now that that's done, we're going to be discussing, because this is our first episode of Spooky October,
Spoopy.
Moosham Castle.
Ooh. It sounds ominous.
It is.
Ooh.
Now, information was pulled from the following sources. 2024 The Little House of Horrors post, 2023 Hub Pages article by Jan Steppen, 2022 Gothic Bite magazine article by Ivy Wayne, 2020 Dark Tourist article, 2018 Grand magazine article, 2014 Seeks Ghosts post by Virginia Lampkin, 2013 AESU post, 2009 Fandomania post, Ghost Hunters International YouTube video, Ghosts Among Us YouTube video, Monstrum Athenaeum, sure, post. And
that's great.
It's a word that I can never pronounce right, so that's fine. I tried.
We've all been there.
And 2 Wikipedia links. And thank you so much to Carrie Ann for her research assistance with this episode. And links to all of these articles will be included in the show notes. We wouldn't be here without support from listeners like you. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can leave a one-time or monthly donation over on Buy Me a Coffee or our Venmo page. Links are in the show notes. And we make a point of reaching out to send you a thank you note and stickers to show our appreciation.
Want to show your support in a more concrete way? Pick up some Ye Olde Crime merch over at our TeePublic shop. We shout out whenever there is a sale each month, and we work to make sure we're creating new designs and changing it up whenever possible. And hey, thanks for listening.
Located in the Salzburg region of Austria, Moosham Castle, or Schloss Moosham, is considered one of the most haunted castles in all of Europe due to its bloody history and ties with the paranormal.
Okay, that's saying something. If it's one of the most haunted in Europe,
Yeah.
because, like, aren't they all mega haunted because of all of the horrific things that went on?
Yeah.
Dang. So it's one of the most, like, top 10?
Instead of a sausage fest, it's a haunting fest.
It's just so many ghosts.
There's ghosts over there. There's a ghost over here. There's ghosts everywhere. This castle has everything.
Even the fireplace has cold spots. What the hell?
Originally built in 1191 by the Moosheimer family, for which the castle is named, the medieval castle is located near the municipality of Untenberg and is believed to have been built on the foundations of a Roman fortress.
Okay.
Nestled among the mountain, this spur castle, which spur castles are built atop a hill or mountain for defensive purposes, and ideally they would be surrounded on 3 sides by like steep hillside.
Oh, nice. Kind of.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
that helps a little.
So really, the only way you can get in is from like down below, and there's no way you're going to be scaling the mountain to get in from the steep rock
I
place.
suppose.
Like that's kind of,
unless you're like a goat, right?
I'm a goat. I'm gonna come into your castle. Meh.
Just a bunch of goats like walking around the castle because they're too cold for the mountain.
So this spur castle overlooks the entire area, standing at an impressive height of 1,079 meters or 3,540 feet. And it's nearly 11,000 meters up on the side of this mountain. So it is very high up there.
Really took some time to build. Dang.
In 1281, Otto von Zaurau, who was a bailiff of the Admont Abbey's possessions for Lungau, was given the castle. I don't know why.
A bailiff was gifted the castle.
He was just given it. Maybe he won it in a game of cards. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all it said.
They're like, look, it's filled with goats. We don't want it. It's really cold. It's yours.
It's kind of drafty. You can have it.
I mean,
around 4 years later, in 1285, the castle was seized by the Prince Archbishops of Salzburg, primarily Archbishop Friedrich II of Viken. At the start of the 14th century, it would become the home of an episcopal burgrave, or castle ruler. So essentially, the Catholic Church and royalty have a baby, and they're the Prince Archbishop, and that's who ruled this castle. So think of it that way.
This is weird, though. Like, why just put somebody in a random castle?
Well,
weird.
It was the scene of many military battles and conflicts, including the Flemish Revolt against Maximilian of Austria from 1428 to 1482. So that was a long one.
Dang.
That was a long one.
That is and it was considered a battle the whole time?
That was a revolt.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right.
Quite the revolt.
Disrespect your surroundings.
Yeah, with all the goats. The Reformation, the Turkish invasions, the 30 Years' War, multiple Austrian-Hungarian wars, the Italian wars, and the German Peasants' War of 1524 to 1525, during which they besieged the castle, but were ultimately driven out in 1526 by Field Captain Franz von Tannhausen.
What a name.
He was like, get off my lawn. And they were like, okay, I guess.
It's mine now. This is all mine now. Go away.
Prince Archbishop Wolf Dietrich Reithenau briefly stayed at the castle during his reign, which lasted from 1587 to 1612. So Moosham was a mere stopover as he attempted to flee Salzburg in October of 1611, when he was captured shortly after and then imprisoned for life.
Oh, dang.
Ruh-roh.
Bummer, dude.
And now we get real sad because Moosham was the site of the gruesome Zabara Yakel, or Salzburg witch trials, which took place between
Oh.
1675 to 1690 and was one of the largest and most well-known witch trials in the entirety of Austria.
Dang.
It was also known as the magician-Jackal process, which I will explain.
Hmm.
The witch hysteria stemmed from the arrest of Barbara Kallerin in 1675 on the grounds of theft and sorcery. She and her partner, Paul Kaltenpauker, were put on trial. After enduring torture, Barbara stated that her son, Paul Jakob Kohler, who she had taught the arts of theft and fraud, had made a pact with the devil, an accusation that her partner corroborated.
Awesome. Cool. I'm
Yep.
sure that was 100% true. Thanks, partner. God.
In August of 1675, Barbara was executed, and then the hunt for her son began soon after. They were like, we gotta find this kid that apparently is in league with Satan. It wasn't until 2 years later that the government received word that Paul Jakob, who was also known as Witch Jackal and Magician Jackal, was dead. That is, until a 12-year-old handicapped beggar named Dionysius Feldner, also known as Dirty Animal, which is great,
Oh.
was arrested and questioned. Now, Dionysius confirmed that he had spoken to Jacob not long before he'd been arrested, just 3 weeks before he'd been arrested.
Oh.
He told the authorities that Jacob led a gang of children and teens in the slums, and that he had taught the children black magic.
Okay. Was the black magic like stealing an apple so that they could eat?
But it was that simple statement that would spawn the arrests of hundreds of unhoused children and teens in Salzburg.
Oh, that's awful.
During the interrogations, stories of Jacob or Jackal grew to the point that authorities started to fear his supposed bloodlust and cruelty.
Yeah, I bet. The fact that he's like taking a bunch of kids.
And making them into like his devil army or something. Yeah.
Yeah. That would scare a bunch of people.
The children told the authorities that he could turn invisible and had the power to order rodents to do his evil bidding.
Oh, no.
They even inferred that should he wish it, he could order said rodents to blight the farmer's harvests.
That's a big accusation. Those kids
Mhm.
are not nice kids, but also I can understand they were probably trying to protect themselves.
The authorities actually ended up avoiding capturing him, making him the most infamous wizard in Salzburg's history to never be caught.
Wow, so that threat was so intense that they were like, just in case it's true,
We don't even want to touch him.
let's just leave him alone because we can't afford our crops to be ruined.
Meanwhile, the government continued to track down and arrest children and teenagers.
Great.
Now, within Moosham, there was a waiting room in which those accused of being witches would be placed. There was a trap door in the room that would cause the person to fall down into the judging room. It's kind of like when Loki is first arrested by the TVA and he like falls
Through the
into one
ceiling.
room and then he falls into another one. It's like that, only not funny.
Yeah, where they probably like really hurt themselves. I'm sure it wasn't just a mattress at the bottom.
Yeah. So after receiving injuries from their fall, the accused would then be taken to the torture room, where
Oh.
they were mercilessly tortured, branded with burning irons, and some had their hands cut off before they would be paraded in front of the locals as a warning.
Yeah, so it wasn't really a judgment room. Sounds like the judgment happened by the time they landed.
And as you can imagine, many of the accused would confess just to make the torture stop.
Yeah, but it kind of sounds like the torture wouldn't stop anyway. They cut off their hands. Oh my God.
The trials themselves took place at Moosham Castle, with the whole process taking place on the grounds from administration, the court, imprisonment, torture, and execution. The prosecutor and judge was a man named Sebastian Ziller, and although Sebastian asked each of the accused, quote, "Did you know the witch Yakel?" end quote. Not everyone cracked under torture. The primary targets of witch accusations in this case seem to be beggars, thieves, the unhoused, elderly, and widows.
So this was just an excuse for these villages to quote unquote clean house of the people that couldn't contribute
Yep.
without providing social programs.
The trials resulted in the execution of 139 people.
Wow.
In an unusual twist from what we've come to view as the norm when it comes to witch trials, in this instance, 113 of those accused and ultimately put to death were males under the age of 21.
Because they're a bunch of kids that they wanted to get rid of. That's really awful. The majority of them were under 21.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All of those executed, with the exception of 2 individuals, were unhoused beggars with no one to vouch for them or their character.
Yeah. Kind of seems like the definition of witch was pretty not researched. I think we have 2 different versions of a witch for that.
In 1681 alone, 109 of the 139 accused were executed. So just in 1 year, 109 of those people were killed.
That's insane.
Death could come primarily in the form of decapitation, although some were burned alive or hanged, while others were thankfully only burned after they had died in a different fashion.
Because they couldn't keep up with the bodies, probably?
Yeah, so they were either burned after having their head cut off or after they were hanged, one of those.
Yeah.
And it was mentioned in another source that some of the accused were pulled in half by horses. And then that same place also said that most of the people were hanged. That was just one source, so I'm going to say that's not true.
I mean, I can see them potentially doing it if they really thought somebody was awful, but
I don't think that would be the norm.
It sounds like they wanted to kill them in the easiest way possible and kill the most amount of people they could at one time.
Mm-hmm. Of those put to death, 39 were children between the ages of 10 and 14.
Oh my God.
53 were teens and young adults ranging in age between 15 and 21. And 21 did not have confirmed ages.
Could have been whatever. Wow.
The youngest child to be executed was Hanel, who was 10 years old. And conversely, the eldest to be executed was 80-year-old Margareta Reinberg.
That's quite the range.
Much of the hysteria likely had to do with the spread of famine, the plague, disease, bad weather, which caused said famine, hygiene, and post-war poverty. Because if you'll remember, there was almost constant battles going on in this area.
And that revolt, too. That would have really hurt. That would have had, effects decades and decades down the line.
Like I said, those who were tried and ultimately executed were seen as quote-unquote ungodly. And of course, with no one to vouch for them, they were branded as witches, and it was an easy excuse to get rid of them.
Yeah. It sounds like they were just getting rid of anybody who needed more because they already didn't have enough resources for those that were quote unquote healthy or deserved it more. So why not kill the people that would take away or maybe make them sick? That's awful. This is really sick.
Following the trials, things seemed to go back to normal at Moosham. By the time 1790 rolled around, Archbishop Count Hieronymus von Colloredo, who ruled at Salzburg from 1772 to 1803, shut down the jail and administrative functions at the castle. And without funding from the church, the castle fell into disrepair. Because by the 14th century, it essentially became the administrative seat of the region.
Interesting.
So the castle became the place for all trials. Prisoners were held there. It was
I suppose, because it would likely look really intimidating, being etched into the mountain like that. I bet that would be a really great show of power. This really frightening large castle in the middle of nowhere, essentially.
Yeah. So for roughly 400 years, it was a place to go and like be held in prison and
Mhm.
tried, and yeah, not the best place to be.
Doesn't sound like many people left.
No. In the 1800s, the castle once again became the epicenter of the supernatural, although this time, instead of witch hysteria, it was werewolf hysteria.
Interesting turn of events. Okay, Victorians. What's up with this?
Many believed that werewolves roamed the castle grounds, due in part to the number of mutilated cattle and deer that were found in the area and on the castle grounds, like an alarming number. So it wasn't just like, oh, this one cow has been
Mhm.
mutilated and oh, this one deer. It was enough where they were like, something paranormal is happening here. And this is
Okay.
also around the same time that these types of events were happening in France.
Mm.
So it was
So, like,
like,
it was potentially word of mouth too. Like, oh, they had
mhm,
this issue in France and it was werewolves. And they're like, oh, that's got to be it. Because I imagine being in the mountains, or like, they would have some sort of predator
mhm,
in that area. So it makes
yeah.
sense.
And just as with the witch trials in the late 1600s, locals that still lived on the castle grounds who were suspected of being werewolves were quickly rounded up, tortured, and executed.
Like, why would you be around here? Like, just go. Like, ride that goat into the sunset somewhere else. They will
Yeah.
take you up that mountain. They will take you on the other side. Don't be here, please.
It's said that the locals of Salzburg rounded up all of the remaining residents of the castle and executed them on the grounds of Moosham before the castle was abandoned entirely.
Yeah, because I bet it was run with like wolves or whatever too, you know.
So after this, the castle essentially lay in stasis until 1886, when Count Johann Nepomuk Wilczek, a renowned Austrian explorer and patron of the arts, purchased Moosham and restored it to its former glory.
Was it ever glorious? Was it ever a good place? Ever?
Well, Johann seemed to think so, because
Uh,
today, Moosham is a private property that is owned by Count Hans Heinrich Wilczek and managed by his daughter, Countess Teresita Wilczek. Both are
okay.
descendants of Count Johann, and a large part of the castle is now a museum, which is open to the public every day except on Mondays and public holidays.
That's
So
fair.
there are sections of the castle that are off limits to the public,
Mhm.
but the majority of it is now a museum that is open.
Which is cool. Like, I understand restoring it. I do. It's just like the former glory. It's like, oh, when they were like just torturing and killing and
You
doing
know, the
lots
good
of
old
crazy
days.
stuff. You know, good times. Let the good times roll.
Like their heads did.
I was just gonna say that. So dark.
Visitors to the museum, as well as staff, have reported a number of strange phenomena, including sensing a dark presence watching them while they're inside the castle, being
Yeah.
touched by an invisible entity,
Nope.
felt someone breathing on them,
Mm-mm.
saw a white mist floating about,
Mm.
heard doors being slammed, phantom footsteps, and voices.
But it's pretty crowded with all those bodies around it.
Some have even claimed to have seen apparitions that disappear as quickly as they materialized. In 2017, Ghost Hunters International visited the Witch's Castle in
No.
season 2, episode 4,
Whoa.
which I watched on the YouTubes. Museum employee Gundi Planetsar described in the episode an experience she had in the torture chamber while she was giving a tour to a group of schoolchildren, which terrifying.
That's not a good first sentence that to a story that you want to hear. I had an experience in the torture chamber.
With a group of schoolchildren.
Yeah, that's fine, I
hmm
guess.
Everything in that sentence was fine.
Core memory for those poor children.
hmm As she stood near the wall of torture tools, she
Hmm.
felt something run its fingers through her hair,
Absolutely not.
and when she turned around, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And she described it as human fingers.
So somebody was just like caressing the back of her head. Cute.
Strange occurrences were also noted in Tony's room, which belonged to a bailiff in the 18th century named Anton, whose nickname was Schürgen Tony. He was known for taking pleasure in torturing his prisoners in a number of cruel ways, and
Oh,
even
no.
mistreated his own parents.
Of course. Sounds like a true sociopath.
We love it. And although it was well known that he was a horrible man that did unspeakable things, he was never punished for his crimes.
No, because he was gifted the castle.
He was the law.
Yeah.
And locals believe that he had, in fact, sold his soul to the devil.
Honestly, out of everybody in this story, I would probably believe that more than the others.
Yeah.
That the people that ran the castle during all of these horrible events probably sold their souls instead of everybody else that was accused.
A visitor to the museum noted seeing and talking to Tony, who was sitting in a corner of his room during a tour, which, horrifying. The story surrounding Tony's death is as follows, and take this with a very big grain of salt.
Okay.
So, a storm blew in as Tony made his final rounds in the dungeon, admiring the wounds that he had inflicted on those imprisoned in the castle before he went to bed.
As one does.
After heading back to his room, he sat down in his chair for a drink, during which a carriage drawn by 4 shiny black horses came to the castle's gates, which opened on their own to allow the guest entrance to the castle.
Yeah, because gates do that, especially back
Yep.
then.
There was an elaborate pulley and lever system in place.
Yeah. Actually, the horses were so beautiful, they just looked at it and the gate opened. It was like, horses, come in.
It was like,
You're so beautiful.
Upon entering the castle, a dark figure stepped out of the carriage. As Tony was falling asleep in his chair, he suddenly heard a knock at his bedroom door. Upon opening it, the figure in black stood there and said, quote, "Good night, dear man. I come from hell, and my prince ordered me to prepare you for your journey," end quote. And although Tony pled his case, the dark figure grabbed him and dragged him down to the carriage, where it said he took him to hell, where he belonged.
As much as I would love to believe that, I think it would be really awesome if he had like a stroke or something and then like all of his victims came and like harassed him and like helped him die by like scaring him. But it sounds like he died of a heart attack or a stroke.
Yeah, and I think if I'm remembering the snippet from the Ghost Hunters episode, the woman who is the managing director of the museum said that he lived like a really long life, but it wasn't a good life. Like he had lots of like medical issues, she kind of intimated later in life, which good. And like that he like died in his room. It was kind of inferred that he passed away in his room.
Yeah, I hope he suffered in death. I think he deserved it. Sounds like he wasn't super great.
In the episode of Ghost Hunters International, the hunting room was also mentioned.
Yeah, I bet. That sounds like a horrific room. Don't want to go there.
Yeah, there's like...
The hunting of what? Humans or animals?
There's like antlers all over the walls in this room. And antique guns that were on racks on the wall were said to have been placed upside down on the racks, even though the room had previously been locked. So at one point, someone went in there, all the guns were upside down, and that shouldn't have happened because the door had been locked. The crew experienced voices, touches, and doors being pulled open. There were some possible EVPs as well as some potential photos. I kind of forgot how much I hate these kind of shows because at the end they were like, yeah, we think something's here, and we know that the reason you wanted us to come is because you were terrified to go in certain rooms of this castle. But, you know, they just want to be recognized. So you just need to be like, I know you're here, and they'll leave you alone.
Yeah, but I will say, like, the Ghost Hunters International, that's not, like, the one guy, right? It's actually the team from, like, New Jersey that were, like, plumbers and stuff.
Yeah.
Initially. Yeah. What I did appreciate is they would come because they were panicking, and they did try to, like, resolve it somehow. Like, hey, I don't think these dudes are going anywhere, so, like, just be respectful, and hopefully they won't scare the shit out of you all the time. I feel like that's kind of their takeaway. And what was nice too, they sometimes like would bless houses and stuff too. Like if people
Mm-hmm.
were like of that faith and wanted that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of nice. But yeah, what do you say to a place like this that's super haunted? You didn't get a lot of information. How do you end that show? Like, oh, it's
Well,
super haunted, but we caught like two things. Bye.
the thing that annoyed me when I was watching it, not to discredit what they do, but they were using incorrect information about the people who were tortured and persecuted in these witch trials.
Oh.
They were told it was mostly women when it really was mostly men.
Oh, that's probably a TV thing because nobody would believe that men were killed more than women.
Yes. And so they were trying to do our favorite bespeckled douchebags tactics of like trying to taunt the person that tortured these people to get him to come out and be judged for what he did to all these
Uh-huh.
women. And then like the lone female of the group was like, I know what you went through. I'm a girl too. And it's like, that part of it made me just be like, no. This was
Yeah,
mostly kids that were murdered, but you do you because it's TV.
yeah.
So take
That's
that
hard.
how you will, but like,
I'm sure the torturers are being held back by all of the people that were tortured by them. I'm pretty sure
yeah,
they can't speak because hopefully they're getting their comeuppance in a
yeah,
spoopy way forever and
yeah.
ever. Jerks.
Anyway, today, Moosham Castle seems to embrace its infamy as a famous haunted location in Austria,
Why
attracting
not?
dark tourism. The
Mhm.
museum focuses on how the people of Moosham lived during the life of the castle, so when it was
Oh, when it was actually a castle and not just a private home that was renovated.
so like it's during the medieval period. It includes the count's vast collection of art, sculptures, paintings, corrals, as well as hunting weapons. The torture chamber also includes the executioner's sword that was used.
Yeah. So it would be super haunted. Could you imagine all of the like energy that's left in all that stuff?
Fun fact, and this is actually a fun fact, not my usual fun facts.
Oh, good.
Count Johann was the primary sponsor for the Austro-Hungarian North Pole expedition of 1872 to 1874. So there
Hmm,
are a number of artifacts on display related to this venture, which I
interesting.
think is actually pretty cool, and I would be
That
interested to
is
know what it
cool.
looks like.
But I don't know if I would be comfortable going to such a scary, spoopy place to see it. I'd be like,
I know,
isn't there like
but
a
like
shed on the edge of the property that you can like showcase this? So if you just want to like hang out, it's just
this
like
is
a
the North Pole wing that is in a trailer outside of the castle, kind of like how they would do in high school. Like they needed a
yep,
room for something and they didn't want to do an
just
addition. Here's a trailer.
yep. It's just a barn
Like,
dominium. It's a little barn on the edge of the property, a she shed.
and finally, should you wish to book a stay, you can
No,
reserve one of the 5 apartments that are located in the old building in front of the castle.
that's very cool. If you are really into that stuff, I feel like that could be like a highlight. You could like book your stay around, but big no thanks for me, dog.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
I'm a stay here, but thanks. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be surrounded by tortured ghost children. That's just awful.
Hard same. So yeah, that's Moosham Castle.
Nice. Oh, and just as an aside too, any of the things that I said sassily about the castle is in no way about the people that own it now. I know that they're probably decent people, especially like having a museum and restoring things, but like gross. I really don't want to be in the torture room or like hang out. It just
Yeah.
it all sounds really awful, but I know so many people in my life that would like be so ready to go to something like that. I just nope, too much pain for me, I think. That's a little
Yeah.
too much.
We'd love to hear from you, and there's a couple of ways you can reach out to us. You can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send us story ideas, share any spooky stories you may have, fun gifts, or even just to say hello.
You can also reach out to us via snail mail. Remember mail? Our mailing address is Ye Olde Crime Podcast, P.O. Box 341, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Fun fact, we like to send out thank you cards with fun stickers you can't get at our shop, so it's worth the cost of a stamp.
Pour yourself a drink and settle in for a thrilling blend of true crime and cocktails. Welcome to Murder and Cocktails, where true crime meets mixology. In each episode, Nicole and Lachelle unravel gripping cases of murder, deceit, and intrigue, all while mixing up a cocktail inspired by the case. Whether you're a true crime aficionado or just love a good story with a twist, Murder and Cocktails is the perfect blend of true crime and spirits. So, grab your favorite glass, tune in, and let us take you on a journey through the shadows. But beware, this is one happy hour you won't forget. Available now on all major podcast platforms. Subscribe today and never miss a sip of the suspense.
On that note, this week's podcast plug is the Murder and Cocktails podcast.
Ooh.
Nicole and her friend, sorority sister, and fellow Army veteran, Lachelle, blend their passion for true crime with a bit of fun as they feature a different cocktail in each episode while diving into some of the most intriguing and often underreported cases.
Nice.
Listeners can subscribe to their newsletter, read about the murderers and victims from their cases, and find their featured cocktail recipes on their website, which we'll include in the show notes.
Cute.
And this week's listener question comes from Carrie Ann, and she would like to know, you have been trapped in a horror film. What do you do to survive?
Oh, dang. I have to survive?
Yeah.
I'm usually the first to go.
You could just stab everybody else with insulin and be like,
Right?
I'm in.
I know. Like, honestly, that was kind of going to be my whole thing. Because fun fact, if you're not a diabetic and you get jabbed with artificial insulin, your body goes into shock and like you kind of seize and die if you're not treated. So I would probably just take my vials and take my syringes and then just fill them up and just like wait. Because even if they were to kill me, I could still like jab them. They'd have to like cut off my hands first or something. I don't know. I don't even know about hiding or anything. I'm not very good at hiding. I'm too fidgety. I can't run. So like,
No, I can't either.
honestly, I appreciate this question, but really, I can't even like pretend that I would survive a horror film because I'm pretty sure I would not. I'd be like the first to get eaten in a zombie film. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I have sweet diabetic blood. Of course they're gonna go for me first. They probably smell amazing to
Yeah.
a zombie, you know? Like
Yeah.
a honey bun. What about you?
I don't know what I could do to survive, honestly. Like, I would probably just try to use my razor sharp, self-deprecating wit to ingratiate
feel-
myself with whoever the killers are, to just be like, hey, dudes, I already hate myself and kind of want to die, so killing me won't really amount to anything. So let's just be friends, and
Yeah.
I will help you kill the others. How's that?
Take all the fun out of it, and then they'll be like, wow, she's a Debbie down them to death.
Yes, I will do
Oh
that.
my gosh. Nobody's thought of that.
They'll be
Just
like,
make them so
wow.
annoyed and just tired of you that they're like, I don't even want to kill you because killing you would be a good thing.
I'll just be like, can I just like carry your weapons or something, and just kind of, or if I just like tell you where everybody else is, can you just let me go? I'll buy you guys some coffee.
You knit a little cover for their like machete.
Can I just arts and crafts you something to make you
Yeah.
not kill me? I don't know.
There you go.
I got nothing. I got nothing.
Same. I love that we were both like, we don't want to live through a horror movie.
Jesus, take the wheel. And Jesus is like, I don't know how to drive.
And Jesus is like, this was not in the plan. Crap. What do we do? This is not how they were supposed to go.
What's happening here? If you love the show, the best way to support us is to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, CastBox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Links to all of these are in our show notes, or if you're already listening on one of these platforms, you know what to do.
Oh, and while you're at it, shoot us a question you'd like to hear us answer on the pod. We'll give you a special shout out and address your burning questions all at the same time. The weirder, the better. Submit them via link in our show notes or shoot them to us in our DMs.
All right, on that note, what's something good you'd like to share?
My partner recently met up with some of his friends and they went to an apple orchard.
Aww.
I know. And like they had a great time. And he brought back some apples for me to kind of play with. And one of them in particular, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called, but like the aftertaste is like a cherry lifesaver. It's one of the newer ones. And it's interesting. Like you can't cook it because if you cook it, you kind of cook out that taste. So
Sure.
it's like a snacking apple. But I just forget how delicious like fresh apples are when they haven't been just like hanging out on a truck forever and ever. So we've just been snacking on apples, and all of our picky patty dogs have been enjoying the apple bites too. So we have a fall snack with them because they're big on watermelon. I have frozen slices of watermelon for them because they love horking it down. Like Loki in particular, he's a Belgian Malinois, so he has the like alligator snap whenever you throw something at him. And it's just such a satisfying crunch when you throw like an apple at him and he like crunches. It's like that like perfect sound effect crunch. So I don't know. It was just kind of nice. It was nice that he was able to get out and hang out with his buddies, and now I get to find recipes of stuff to make with them, and it's just nice. I've been holding off getting apples because I had a feeling we would do an orchard or do something like that in the future, because you never want to get burnt out in this season. So I have yet to do anything pumpkin-y in preparation for this month because I have a feeling it's kind of inevitable. In the Midwest, you eat something appley or pumpkin-y in the next 2 months, whether you like it or not. It's just there.
Pumpkin spice, yep.
What about you? What's one good thing?
I got asked to be like a communications coordinator for Girl Scouts. So
Nice.
So I'd be helping out more in a different volunteer capacity to what I'm doing as a troop leader. And I said yes, just because I'm a glutton for punishment. So I had that phone call today, and we'll see what happens as a result of that. It's one of those things where it's like I can be as involved or uninvolved as I choose to be in this capacity. Okay. It's more about getting information out there about what our local community is doing with Girl Scouts in regards to events that we are putting on and special meetings and things like that for leaders and things of that nature. So nothing like too time intensive, just something else within Girl Scouts. We'll say that. Shall we?
We shall.
Want to be social with us? You can see pics from this week's episode, bonus content, and funny memes on X at Ye Olde Crime Pod, or on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Speaking of YouTube, we have a special playlist just for our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments with our guest podcasters to see who can correctly guess the meaning of some obscure Victorian slang terms. If that's your thing, check it out.
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Madison.
And we'll see you next time with another tale
as old as crime.